an email with the link, but it looks like somebody from your team sent off this link.
Yeah, so what we're doing today, gentlemen and ladies, is we're actually having CoStar and their economists come on and talk about what's going on in the market. And I spoke with Jennifer. I think most of you are familiar with Jennifer. I spoke with her yesterday, and she went ahead and Jeff, so you know, as far as she asked us to send her over the link so they could go ahead and be part of it.
It looks like she accepted the calendar invite, so she should be jumping on probably here shortly.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that being said, should we jump to our website? Holly, are you available to touch base with that? Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, I can. I know that there was the Loom video that Miss Maggie helped me do. There's been some updates and improvements since that went out, like, you know, adding my boss to the page, you know, he's an agent there. Yeah, he's not on the call at the moment, I don't think, so he won't know that I left him out. Whoops. So would you want me to do just the quick overview of it, or is it just easier to watch the Loom thing?
Do just like a quick overview. I'll resend the Loom out after this meeting.
All right.
People can watch like a full 8 minutes, but we don't need the long version for.
Don't you want to listen to me drone on and on for 8 minutes?
Well,
of course.
Maybe.
Yeah. Who wouldn't? Okay, so let me share my screen. And well, let me get out of some things here. And, you know, shopping for shoes. Just kidding. A little bit kidding. Okay, Squarespace. Sorry, put me on the spot.
Yeah, no, thanks for being available.
It's still a work in progress. I did remake a form that will go.
I'll send out.
Yeah, the first one that I sent to Tom Baker was kind of sad. It was not very good. Okay, so we're slowly starting here. Are you able to see anything yet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Slowly loading.
Is it loading?
There we go.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Right now, once this is published live, if you look up in here in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that it reads just still squarespace.com. Once I have purchased the plan for it, the hosting plan. However, it won't go live until we actually publish this out. We didn't want to do that yet until we had it at least a little bit further filled out. Logo up in here. Any of this is changeable, can be changed quickly and easily. Home screen page comes out full service. These little bad boys will trickle across if as you're saying on the site. I don't know if the amount of agents is approximately that. We can change that at any time. I threw in some other stats here. Those can be changed. Our about us is the Keller Williams commercial canned information from the site. Over here it says meet the team. I'll come back to these buttons, and then we have our view our listings, and then clearly the P for passion was left out of this one, and then our career opportunity. Our information down here, which again we can change at any time. Quick join our email list. We have that set up currently to have that response go to the front desk until we figure out where we want to attach that to. It does link with a MailChimp, that type of thing. There's a number of service providers that can collect that information for us. We'll go up here to our quick about button. I'm doing this quickly. It's just a anchor on the page, so everything else will reload. All right, we're going to do our agents, and I currently have it set up to where there's 5 across because I was trying to do math, and well, Yeah, I married an engineer, so he does the math for me. So I just added the numbers going across here. So these are the pictures that I could find. Because we do not have access to the old Keller Williams Midwest site, I couldn't collect any of the data for bios, things like that. So this is stuff that I just randomly picked out on kwcommercial.com. People, there's many of you who have nothing on kw.com or kwcommercial.com, and there's a number of you that have very, very old and outdated information. So I would suggest that you take the few minutes that it takes to update that kwcommercial.com profile, which I think is in your KW thing.
White
Maggie
paper.
can help you with that one.
So
Okay,
these
so
are,
we have,
these
go
are
ahead.
still being updated, right?
yeah.
Okay.
That's why I said, yeah, this is just a quick one. I haven't gone in here and published anything or done anything yet. So we've got some good pictures, old pictures, that type of thing. When you click on an agent, we're going to use Tom again. And Tom, I did not update your information yet.
Okay.
It brings us Tom's mug and just a quick bio on him. I need to increase this font, and I thought I changed the font here, but I'll change it again to be more accessible and readable. As you'll see up here at the top too, once this is live, each page, each bio will have the name on there. So if a person wants to just use a link to send to their bio page, they can do that on their own. And then if we go to careers, we have our about information, stats again. It just kind of scrolls into a couple of, these are just, these can be edited at any time. I just was trying to fill in some information there. The cap is unique to Keller Williams, so that's why we have that wonderful thing there. Get in touch. Whee! And then if there is a form here currently, until we know otherwise, this will go to the front desk. If this is the same type of information, and we'll collect that.
Holly, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Do you have my bio or do you need it? I think you were able to pull it, were you? From before?
I pulled nothing from the old Midwest website, which is why we have a form going out. Most people had a lot of different information. So that'll,
Okay.
Maggie will get that to you. And I apologize, but we can't pull anything from the old site.
Well, mine's pretty current. So if you just send me a quick email, I'll send you over my bio.
Yep, we've got a form that'll go out to everybody, and it'll
Oh,
just be,
okay.
slap it in there and it'll be good.
Okay.
Yep, and then here's their listings page. Currently it goes to Keller Williams Commercial, and we can touch base on that when we have a couple of alternatives that we're thinking about. So, all right, that's it.
Holly, that's
Oh, yeah.
awesome. Thank you for your work on that. And then for those bios, Maggie, are we sending out, or what's the process that we're doing there?
Yep, so for anybody that wants to get started right away, there's a link in the chat bar with the Google form that you can go directly to. You can email your headshot directly to me at agentservices475@gmail.com. I'm also going to send all this information out to you in the recap notes, so you can feel free to fill out the form that I send out later, or copy and paste this link right now. So just keep an eye out on an email from me.
So if
Okay.
I sent you my bio, which has my headshot on it as well, was that going to suffice for what you're looking for?
There's a few other questions that we need you guys to answer.
Okay.
So like filling in your designations, like, do you work specifically with development, land, multifamily, office, that kind of thing? Like there's a space for you to check all that off. Put other, and to talk about whether you do tenant or landlord representation too. So there's a few questions that we need you to check out too. So just fill out that form. I'll send that your guys' way.
Okay, I'll wait to see.
And the
form.
higher the resolution headshot, the better. Higher resolution is better. The site will adjust accordingly. If you saw on the page, some of them were pretty grainy because I swiped them from LinkedIn just for temporary placeholders. And yeah, so just look out for the form and you'll see all the information that you need. Thanks, Maggie.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much for covering that. And thanks for all the work. That looks very professional, high end. Well done. I see we have Jennifer from CoStar here today. Hi. And you may be on mute.
There we go. Hi.
Hi. What kind of updates can you give us from CoStar and what's going on there?
So a couple quick things. We have a new commercial peers tool, which lets you pull up a quick competitive set for a property. This is available for office, retail, and industrial. It's already been available for multifamily. So if you're not using it, reach out and let's look at it. But it'll pull up a competitive set for you. You can customize it. And then you can export the data about that competitive set. You can also run comparison reports to see how your subject property stacks up to the competitors as far as leasing, vacancy, availability, leasing activity, absorption, all those kinds of things. And a quick overview of construction in the area as well is part of that report. Our other new big tool is the public record database that lets you search commercial parcels for things like loan maturity dates, lenders, zoning, land use, assessed value, that kind of thing. And so you're able to pull up the parcels that meet your particular criteria, get a lot of loan detail about that. And then you can export the information into Excel. And then we've also updated our listing performance report so that you can go and see how your listings are doing, how many views they're getting. This will be especially helpful on the LoopNet side of things. You can see who's looking at your listings on the LoopNet side of things. At least a portion of those people were able to do a reverse IP lookup for people who are looking not from their phone or from home, but otherwise we're able to do that lookup and see who's looking at your listings, how many times they've come back, how long they're spending in the listing, whether they're from in the market or outside the market. So you can get a lot of good insight into the performance of your listing on LoopNet.
So even more analytics
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
nice charts and graphs you can share with your owners.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. Anything else that we should know about?
We have a new screen share tool as part of CoStar now. So as you're logged into CoStar, you're able to go to the menu and there's a screen share option. And so if you give me a call and you're in the middle of something, you can read me this code from the screen share and I can look at your CoStar screen with you and talk you through to get you where you need to go. I can circle things for you to show you where to click. So it's really convenient. So if you find yourself in the middle of a search and you're having issues, just give me a call and I can hop on with you and look at your screen with you. And if you're interested in digging into any of these tools, I'm happy to set up a one-on-one session online and we can connect.
Oh, excellent. And then the best contact to get a hold of you, Jennifer?
You can email me. I'm at jdewberry@costar.com and also, or by my phone, which I'll send you an email as well, but it's 612-400-2285. And I will send out an email to everyone after the meeting just to make sure you have my contact info. I'm also at the bottom of your homepage on CoStar.
Okay, excellent.
For the sharing the screen with CoStar, is that
Yeah.
just with you and support? Or is it something that we could, look at with our client or customer via share in order to show them the market analytics?
Oh, yep, it's just between CoStar and a CoStar user. So just
Okay,
between
very
the
good. Thank you.
Yep, there is a co-tour feature now in LoopNet where you can connect. It's sort of like a Zoom feature, right, built into LoopNet so that you can look at listings together that way. I'm not sure that specifically addresses what you're looking for, but you will see if you go into LoopNet a button that says co-tour and you just sign in and then you can invite whoever you want and they can hop on the call with you.
With your LoopNet designation because there's CoStar and there's LoopNet. They're two separate, correct?
They're
Still?
two separate things. LoopNet is free for anyone to look at, so you don't have to have a login for that. I think if you're the person initiating, you can just log in with your CoStar and you'll see in the menu, you can go over to LoopNet. But you can then invite whoever you want. They don't have to have any kind of sign in or anything like that. And then they're able to look with you. But you are, in that case, able to look just at the LoopNet listings, which will be less complete than the CoStar. CoStar is everything. LoopNet's just the ads that are paid to be visible to the public.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Holly.
Excellent. And we have a speaker today.
We do. And did you all get to meet Jeff Thompson before I move on?
We have not.
No, so Jeff Thompson is your new account exec. So he's on the call as well.
Hi, guys. Excited to work with you. I know you'd previously worked with Jeff Anderson, and like Jennifer, I am located at the bottom of your homepage. So when you go into CoStar, you'll see me as the account exec. My job primarily is to help with any account changes, help with any functional issues that you may have, and then certainly working with Jennifer in conjunction. We're partners on every account that we work with. So happy to help you, happy to join, and happy to help you guys get through the year.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
And then we do have our special speaker today, Danielle Grimelli. She's our market analyst, and I'll let her introduce herself more. Her camera's not working, but she's on the call. And so she's going to give us an update today, and then I'll just put in a plug that she's going to do an update next week on the office sector. And we've been doing these every week or two on different asset types, and you should be getting email invites to these if you have a CoStar subscription. So please feel free to join us for any of those. But I'll turn it over to Danielle. I think you're on mute still, Danielle. But
Yep, I just wanted to wait till you were done. Thanks so much, Jen. Nice to meet everybody. Sorry that you can't see me. As Jen said, you can see us at the bottom of the screen in CoStar. So for me, if you go into the analytics module in Minneapolis and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see my photo and contact information there. Also, when I give this presentation today and we hand out the slides, we're going to have my contact information on those as well if you have additional follow-up questions. Just to introduce myself a little bit, though, I've been with CoStar over 4 years, and more than half that time as an analyst in the Midwest. I also cover Kansas City, Lincoln, Omaha. I've covered Des Moines in the past, Madison, Wisconsin, contributed in Milwaukee, and covered St. Louis. So lots of experience in the Midwest overall if you ever have questions about other markets. But if everybody is ready, I'll go ahead and get my screen sharing set up. Get that out of the way. All right, so we're going to give you an update on the Minneapolis multifamily state of the market. We've been doing these, as Jen said, about every week or every other week, just depending on how timing goes, as events are changing, and obviously they have been changing very quickly. So today we'll take a look at what's been happening in Minneapolis for the economy compared to the nation and the region, take a look at some of the other similarly sized markets, and then we'll take a look at the multifamily sector for the market overall and submarket trends. You're always welcome to ask any questions throughout the presentation if you have a question on a particular slide, but we'll pause at the end for a few minutes as well if you have some follow-up questions then. So first, we'll get into our national stimulus measures, what's taken place so far. So when the pandemic very first hit. So the Fed took a lot of actions that they didn't take in the Great Recession because this was a very different animal. In the Great Recession, we had fiscal irresponsibility. That's why we had the downturn in the markets when the housing bubble burst. In this case, businesses were told to close, workers were told to go home. So the Fed knew that this sudden economic shutdown was going to have drastic consequences and tried to counter those with interest rate cuts, quantitative easing, global liquidity and regulations eased. We had the CARES Act allocations, that $2 trillion stimulus package. So about $232 billion in corporate tax relief. Our cash payments to households, so those stimulus checks, almost $300 billion. And our increased unemployment benefits, $250 billion. Now that slice of the pie is important because if you've been tracking the news and all of the discussions about stimulus, that extra $600 a week that the federal government was giving the unemployed who qualified ran out as of July 31st. And as of right now, there's nothing to replace it. So that's going to be a key factor going forward in our discussion when we start to look at some different economic scenarios and how that might play out. We had around $350 billion in help for small businesses. And then our loans and grants to hard-hit industries at the state and local government level, $500 billion, and emergency funding for healthcare, state and local government and federal agencies, about $340 billion. So that's how that $2 trillion stimulus package broke down. Now, in this initial round of funding, we also had that Paycheck Protection Program. So this is our state loan uptake as a share of small businesses, and we see Minnesota in next to that red arrow. So the dark blue bars are share of firms receiving Paycheck Protection Program loans, and then the lighter blue is that share that went to annual payroll. Now, in that first round, about 75% of your loan had to go to keeping your workers employed within 8 weeks, keeping your business up and running. And that's really grossly oversimplifying all of the restrictions that came out of that first round of funding. And that had knock-on effects when we had the second round of PPP loans. Small businesses were more nervous about taking those loans because they really weren't sure what the restrictions were going to be, if they were going to be forgiven. But we do expect more stimulus to come up ahead, and we're going to discuss that in a moment. Now, our loans break down by industry. This is nationally, so we took a little snapshot of all the states on the last slide. This is overall. Our thousands of firms getting loans, those numbers on top of the blue bars, and then over on the left axis, those are our loans approved in billions of dollars. So the construction industry receiving the most nationally, almost $35 billion in loans. And professional science and technical services, even though more firms got loans, they received about $30 billion total, followed by manufacturing, healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, and retail and wholesale trade, right? These are no surprises here. Everybody expected these industries to be hard hit, and they were, so no surprise that they received the most amount in that first round of funding as far as loans. Now, we do expect stimulus ahead. We're not sure what that's going to look like. The House passed the HEROES Act in May. That was the $3 trillion stimulus package. The Senate, the Republican Party, turned around and said, no, we think that's too much. How about $1 trillion? And a very different outlook on what stimulus funding might look like. So stimulus checks in the Democrat proposal would be $1,200 to households, $1,200 per dependent. And Republicans said, no, how about $700 for dependents? And we have this back and forth. And how much should unemployment insurance be? And there's all of these discussions. And meanwhile, the economy is still limping along, and we're still looking at these scenarios and how they might play out. So these are factors to consider as we go forward. And when I discuss the different economic scenarios, these are factors that are going to contribute to which one is more likely to happen. Now, first, we did see a change in consumer spending, as you would expect. This is Minnesota's consumer spending timeline overall. This is provided by the Melissa and Bill Gates Foundation, as well as Harvard at tracktherecovery.org. So this crisis first hit, we saw a 41.3% drop in consumer spending overall. This is now recovered. When the stimulus payments started, we started to see a pretty drastic turnaround as far as consumer spending, and we've seen it recover since. Now, again, that may change as things go forward, but as of right now, still below where we were at before the national state of emergency was declared on March 13th, but we have recovered from that low. We're about, as of August 11th, we were about 13% of where we were at before that pandemic hit. In the entertainment and recreation center, this was our largest decrease in consumer spending, followed by transportation. Of course, if everybody's stuck at home and not going anywhere, that's going to be your largest decrease in spending, would be transportation, followed by entertainment and recreation as people were restricted from going to those locations. So initially we saw about a 70% decrease in transportation, and in entertainment and recreation, it was about 50%, but we've seen that start to recover since that time, although not as drastically as spending overall. Now, our restaurant and hotel decrease in consumer spending, this is somewhere else. We saw a huge hit to that industry as well as jobs lost. 76% drop in spending as those locations were closed. We saw stimulus payments around the 15th. And really not until June when we started to see the states and Minnesota start to reopen did we see that pick up below where we were at that point. I hope you can still hear me. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is a little shaky here. But
It was a little
with that,
shaky for a second, but we can still hear you mostly.
oh, perfect. All right, perfect. So with that backdrop, we're going to jump into the Minneapolis economy and how that compares with the nation, what's been happening here. So this is the end of 20 Q2. That's where you see that drastic drop off. That's hard to miss. Over on the right side of your screen, Minneapolis versus the US. This is our historical job growth. Minneapolis in the blue and the US in the gray. So at the end of 20 Q1, we were trending about 0.5% in job growth year over year. The economy had already started to slow just because the labor market was tight. Pretty much everybody who wanted a job had a job at that time. So job growth really wasn't super strong at that point already. And then we see in 20 Q2, both for Minneapolis and the nation, job growth slows drastically. Minneapolis actually a little bit faster than the nation. Now there's some good news ahead, but we just want to give you an accurate picture of what happened, what we saw happen at the end of 20 Q2. Now we did already start to see some recovery as the state opened. It was reported that there was around, unemployment went to around 9% instead of that deep drop off we first saw. This is our forecast. So what we just looked at was that initial drop off for job growth. Now we're including the forecast, which comes from Oxford Economics. So this is our baseline scenario. In the baseline scenario, we would expect to recover all jobs that were lost during the pandemic by mid-2022. We would start to see job gains around 8.7 million in 2021, and we would actually recover everything. This is this V-shaped scenario, if you're tracking the economy at all, that you've probably heard about. Now, the unemployment rate, as I said, so this is reverse of job growth. Labor market had been tight in 20 Q1 at the end of that quarter, and we see unemployment for Minneapolis spike to about 16% initially in 20 Q2, and then start to recover. Now, what does this mean as far as net employment? If you had attended this presentation back in 20 Q2, just before the end of the quarter, it was estimated that net, we were going to lose about 309,000 jobs overall for that quarter. As I said, the state opened before the end of the quarter. Minneapolis opened and were able to start returning to work. So we actually ended about 260 net jobs, 1,000 net jobs lost for that quarter. So not quite as drastic as what we were expecting. Now we do still expect further job losses in 20 Q3. That's what Oxford is forecasting, about 160,000 by the end of this quarter. What we looked like, so we're going to do a little bit of a comparison here by sector. Our job growth overall, we're looking at employment growth year over year in the blue diamonds. So as I said, about 0.5% year over year, jobs growing overall at the end of 20 Q1 compared to our average annual employment growth over the past 5 years. That's in the gray bars. So we were already trending below our 5-year average as far as job growth. The trade sector, which is where retail falls, had already had some losses year over year, trending well below the 5-year average. Our strongest sectors at that point were education and health services, construction, and government. Financial activities was down well below its 5-year average at that time. And then we had the pandemic hit. Our total losses, end of 20 Q2 employment growth year over year, about 15%. And then we see that pull down on the 5-year average. It was that drastic of a decrease that our 5-year average actually now went negative. So we lost those gains. Our office using sector, even though it wasn't the hardest hit, it was still impacted as well. Something there was a lot of debate about it as to whether that would actually happen, but it did. Almost 12% or just about 12% of jobs lost year over year net. Hit in the professional and business services sector, financial activities, both of those 12 to 13.5% losses. And of course, our deepest losses in the trade sector, manufacturing, construction and leisure and hospitality. And as we said earlier, when we saw those PPP loans, those are the sectors that receive the most in order to stay afloat. Now, another piece of good news, Minneapolis versus the US, this is our median household income. So across the most recent expansion, which started about 2010, we were already tracking well above the nation. We expect that to continue, but we do see that plateau Again, this is this base case scenario. We see a little bit of a plateau going into 2021 before we start to recover. If we see that return of those jobs and the economic recovery in that baseline scenario, then we would start to see household incomes pick up once again. Our metros that were impacted first, and this gives us an idea of where we might go. So we're taking some snapshots of where we were when the pandemic hit, and now where we might be going, right? So this is our percent change in jobs in the various colors, and then total change in jobs in real numbers is the size of the circles. So no surprises that you have the coastal cities hit first. It's our largest population centers, largest transition points of goods and services, followed by the larger Midwest cities and southern metros. Minneapolis there in the mid-level blue, negative 0.3% to a negative 0.6% change in jobs initially when this pandemic hit, and overall about negative 10.8 thousand to 37.1 lost at that time. Now taking a snapshot of where we are, so that was when the pandemic first hit, where we were in early July with our weekly unemployment claims. Our weekly moving average is in the gray line on the left for Minnesota, and that's compared to our 4-week moving average in the blue. So we've been falling behind that 4-week moving average for some time. As of July 18th, we were just slightly behind it and well below where we were first at when this pandemic hit, and we saw the spikes in unemployment claims a few weeks in a row, well over 100,000 claims being processed at that time. And it took some time well into May before we started to drop below our 4-week moving average. But it's positive news in that sense, but something to keep in mind with these numbers as well is that we've never dealt with something like this as a metro or state or nation, where so many people lost their jobs so quickly, and the states were overwhelmed with the sheer volume of unemployment claims that happened at that time. So this captures all those claims processed. There certainly are people who just fell out of the workforce, or those claims have yet to be processed. So just something to keep in mind as we're looking at these numbers. Now nationally, that's been the case as well. That weekly moving average there in the gray on your right, moving behind, falling below that 4-week moving average. So that's positive news as well as far as where we were looking. Now we're in early August. What's happening now? For Minnesota, falling even lower behind that 4-week moving average. We were just slightly below in early July. Now we're reducing those unemployment claims even further. So that's good news. And the same thing for the US overall. Yet again, there's all of these factors to consider about further stimulus funding and what will happen with unemployment insurance. Are we going to continue to see coronavirus cases spike? Will we have further shutdowns? These are all going to contribute to these scenarios we're going to discuss ahead as far as which one is most likely to happen. So our multifamily sector, this has been pretty much the story of the past decade for almost every metro. We've seen the most development in this sector, certainly a lot of 4- and 5-star communities, Class A properties that have come online. So what we're looking at in the baseline scenario for Minneapolis, supply, demand, and vacancy, we have our demand in the orange, our absorption, our net deliveries in the blue. So the difference between properties delivering and maybe what we've had demolished or converted, and then our vacancy rate for the metro in the green. So in this base case scenario, we are expecting vacancies to rise ultimately up to about 8%. And that's really because we have so much supply underway. We have more than 10,000 units under construction, and we expect that to be the case for some time. And that's going to take time to fill. We're going to get into what those vacancies look like by delivery timeframe as we get to that construction piece. But this is just the expectation if the economy holds as it is, and we see that recovery we discussed in that V-shaped scenario where jobs start to grow in 2021 and we recover all those jobs by mid-2022, then maybe vacancies get around 8%, but they don't pierce that stabilization threshold of 10% in this base case scenario. We went to a moderate downside. Now, what does moderate downside mean? As I said, Oxford Economics is our economic data provider. In this downside scenario, it would estimate that we would not regain those jobs. We would actually ultimately start to grow in late 2021, not mid 2021, not early 2021, but we see that where that demand returns around late 2021, we would start to add jobs again. But even by 2025, we would never get to the point of being where we were before this pandemic hit. We would still be about 3 million jobs below, nationally below that level. So our economy doesn't quite recover at that point. And if that were the case, we would see reduced demand in the multifamily sector. We would see vacancies rise near about 9%. Again, we're not piercing that stabilization threshold. So even with all of the supply underway, the demand has been there so far. Even with a weakened economy, we're expecting vacancies don't get much above 9% in that case. Now, what if things get much worse? And the severe downside, this is similar to the moderate downside in the sense of we don't see growth start to return until the end of 2021 for the nation, for our economies. And we would not see the recovery of all of the jobs that we lost due to the pandemic. In the severe downside scenario, we would be about 6 million jobs below where we were at, so double what we saw in the moderate downside scenario. And in that case, even vacancies would rise to about 9.5%. So we're still talking about, this is a strong market, and even in this severe downside, we're not expecting to pierce that stabilization threshold. So these are just some different scenarios to consider as we're going forward. A lot of those factors that are going to play into which one is most likely, again, are stimulus measures. How do we get a vaccine? That's something that contributes to that baseline scenario that we're strongly relying on. Sometime in the next year, we get an effective vaccine and we don't continue to have these outbreaks that make us have to shut down businesses and stop consumers from being able to spend money. So where we were at the end of 20 Q2, which class or which asset class in the apartment sector maybe had some weakness already as far as vacancies? We see our 4 and 5 star in the green, that's our Class A properties, our 3 star in the red, our Class B, and then our 1 and 2 star in the blue, that's our Class C. So 3 star, our Class B and our Class C really trending near each other, both below 5%, so tight occupancies. But 4 and 5 star, it's not so much because we're lacking demand. That's where inventory has been brought online. This is not a stabilized vacancy series. So this almost tracks hand in hand with our deliveries of those properties. So 2013 to 2015, we see a massive amount of those properties come online, and then they need time to fill, right? So we see that demand start to pull the vacancy rate back down into 2017, and now we're seeing it start to go back up again with this latest round of supply that's being brought to market. Rent growth year over year, somewhere we saw the impact of the pandemic almost immediately. We're looking at Minneapolis here in the red compared to the US average in the peach bars. So as of the end of 20 Q2, our rent growth year over year had dropped below a percentage point, and the US even lower. So still trending above the national average, but this is somewhere that we still expect to continue to see losses. We've heard just anecdotally the concessions that have been given across the country, not just Minneapolis. There's been rent reductions if you pay your rent on time, or reductions of late fees if you're not able to make the payment on time, but you do ultimately make it in full. We'll get into some of that discussion ahead as we're looking at rents. So our Minneapolis daily rents just before, right around the time the pandemic hit, right, the national state of emergency was declared on the 13th. The 14th, we're trending about $1.50 a square foot in daily rents. And then we see that drop. We did see rents start to recover, and then we saw subsequent drops as well. We haven't really gotten to the point where we were before the pandemic. This is not true of every metro, but Minneapolis has not only had to deal with a pandemic and quarantines and shutdowns, but also we've had the riots that damaged properties, and that has impacted, that's been something that we've had to struggle with as well. So our year over year rent growth, this is the base case scenario. We're looking at asking rent growth year over year in the orange bars, our effective rent in the blue, and our asking rents in the green. So we're actually seeing that gap close a little bit between asking rents and effective rents, but that's also because we're having asking rents decrease as landlords try to hold on to tenants. In this base case scenario, we would expect to still see rent losses through the third quarter of 2021 before we start to see that turnaround. And again, this is that V-shaped case. So we get a vaccine, we see all of the jobs ultimately recovered. We start to see jobs grow in 2021. This is what that rent growth would look like in that baseline scenario. Now, what about our base case versus our severe downside? And that severe downside, just to remind you, in that case, we would not recover the jobs that we lost during the pandemic. We would be ultimately about 6 million jobs below where we were at, and we wouldn't see job growth until really the end of 2021, early 2022. So in this case, rent losses would be about double what they would be in the base case scenario ultimately overall for 2020. In the baseline forecast, we would start to see growth in 2021, but not true if we're in that severe downside. If we're in the severe downside, we continue to see rent losses, and we don't really turn around to gains until 2022. And just quick math there, when you're talking about more than 12% rent losses, we never really recover what we lost over the remainder of that forecast in that severe downside. Now, where we've been are submarkets with the highest rent growth. This is as of the end of 20Q2, year over year. North Minneapolis growing the strongest. This does not mean where your rents are the highest. It's just where we've seen the most increase in asking rents year over year. Followed by Coon Rapids, Fridley, Blaine, South Minneapolis, South St. Paul, Carver. All of this is very strong. North Minneapolis experiencing exceptional rent growth, really. At that time, downtown St. Paul had already started to significantly lose growth in asking rents. Edina, downtown Minneapolis, University, Eden Prairie. These are the submarkets that have had the most development, and they have some of the highest asking rents. So no surprise that we're seeing such strong losses in those submarkets. Our strongest 5-year rent growth across submarkets as of the end of 20Q2, North Minneapolis, Bloomington West. All of these really 100 basis point spread between everybody winning over the past 5 years. But if we're talking about, we're looking into the future and we're in this baseline scenario, we're going to take a chunk out of this growth that we've seen over the past 5 years. If we're in a severe downside, we may even eradicate all of the growth that we've seen well past the past 5 years. Our lowest growth so far, University, Uptown West, Calhoun, Bryn Mawr, Pierce, Far Eastern suburbs. So looking at these, really the takeaway is not getting into what percentage it is, but these are the areas we already had our rent growth impacted. And if we're talking about a severe downside, where overall we're talking about 12% losses for the market, these are where these are the submarkets we're going to be looking at where we're going to see the steepest losses. So submarkets to watch going ahead. Now our total rent growth since our previous peak, that previous peak was 2007 Q4. So for the metro-wide as of the end of 20Q2, we saw about 23% increases in rents. And across the metro, it's been pretty even, about a 6% spread across the various submarkets. Now our deliveries and demolitions, this is somewhere we expected we may have seen an impact initially. There was a lot of discussion when the pandemic first hit as to whether properties would still be able to complete, whether it was multifamily, office, industrial, retail, because it was unsure whether construction was going to be able to continue with social distancing. That's not so much been the case. It's not really whether the projects underway are going to complete, it's how are we going to fill them? How are we going to abide by social distancing measures and make people feel comfortable and safe moving into units? And it's unlikely we're going to see a lot of proposals brought to fruition going forward. So we start to see, after the units that are underway complete, we start to see a downward turn in our deliveries across the forecast. Our apartment inventory, this is our units built by decade, so getting a sense of maybe our supply risk or how has Minneapolis been building compared to the nation. So 2010 to present in the dark blue, just below the national average. About 15% of Minneapolis's inventory, total inventory, came online in this past decade. So we had an uptick in construction from where we were at the previous 2 decades. Previous 2 decades, it was about 12% combined. So we've had an uptick in what we're doing, but we're still not at the national average, what the nation has done overall in terms of bringing multifamily units online. Our submarkets with the most construction, downtown Minneapolis, as I said, University, not just the places with the most development, but the 2 submarkets we've really seen a lot of construction. Also Uptown, West Calhoun, Bryn Mawr. These are our units underway that we still have yet to deliver. As a percent of inventory, submarkets with the most construction, again, University, downtown Minneapolis, Edina, Northeast Minneapolis, all growing inventories at 10% or above of what they have existing. So lots underway here. This does create a supply risk. It's why we're looking at vacancies increasing, but we have had the demand to meet it overall. Our highlights here, we've had our urban core density, as I said, downtown Minneapolis, University submarket, the Northeast as well, going out to spreading southwest to Edina. Some of our feature properties that have been underway, 250 Hennepin with 255 units, the Odin, that's 490 units, and then the Millennium at Southdale, that's 375 units. All of these expected to complete between September of this year and mid-2021. Our most heavily developed submarkets since 2017. So what have we brought online? How are those submarkets growing? The University submarket has grown the most. About 35% of its total inventory growth has come online across those past 3 years, followed by Scott for western suburbs, Apple Valley, Lakeville, Hastings. So lots of inventory that we've already had come underway. And when we're talking about now University submarket has a lot more under construction that it's going to be bringing online. And we saw that we've already had rent losses in the submarket. This is something to watch going forward. Most heavily developed, this is by net deliveries by total units. So we were looking at how much submarkets were growing in terms of just growing their inventory. And this is in total units. So if we're looking at it from that scope, downtown Minneapolis, Maple Grove, Golden Valley, and Plymouth, and University submarkets all have brought on the most units in the past 3 years. Now, if we're checking this out by time frame, so 2011 to 2015, that's our light blue, our 2016 to 2017, that's our mid-range blue, and 2018 to present plus what's under construction. That's our dark blue. So we've been focused on downtown Minneapolis pre-2015. We sort of pulled a University submarket in 2016 to 2017, and then 2018 to present. Now we're really focusing as well on University, Maple Grove, Golden Valley, and Plymouth. Now an interesting point that this slide is not showing you. Now, how have we performed as far as those units that have delivered? Well, if you go back before 2017, you're talking about 2016 to 2017, those properties were averaging around just below 7.5% vacancy as of early 20Q3. So strong occupancies. If you go 2011 to 2015, those units that were brought online across all the submarkets, those are averaging a sub 5% vacancy. But now when we're getting into 2018 to present, we're talking about 14.5% vacancy rate if you're only including everything that completed through the end of 2019. That goes up to about 22% vacancy if you include what's been delivered in 2020. It's not a completely fair comparison because we typically say projects need about a year to stabilize to start for that demand to start to fill them, and that would be a strong rate of stabilization. But in this case, now we have properties delivering amid a pandemic. So how long are those vacancies going to stay that high? What are landlords going to have to do to make tenants feel comfortable to come into these places? Now, somewhere else we've seen an effect from the pandemic. This is our Minneapolis sales volume by property type. Office in the blue, retail in the red, industrial in the yellow, multifamily in the green. This is actually a strong picture for Minneapolis, even though we're looking at such a drastic reduction halfway through the year in most of our property types, it means investors are still confident in the market somewhat, because investment pretty much came to a standstill at the beginning of 20Q2. Our biggest deal in Minneapolis, that's been well publicized, was in the industrial sector. That's CSM and Blackstone portfolio trade. Blackstone actually dropped many of its deals it had underway when the pandemic hit, and it's since started to back off of commercial mortgage-backed securities, but it went forward with this deal, and it cited the strength of the industrial and office portfolio that's partially in Minneapolis, partially in Denver, as a reason why it was going through with this deal. Now, looking quarter by quarter, you see that drop off a little more drastically. We do still have investment proceeding through 20Q2. And then in 20Q3, now we're just a month in. So we still have 2 months to go in the quarter, and we are still seeing some deals. If you take a look at Kansas City or some of the other Midwest metros, we've seen an even further drop off in investment than what we've seen in Minneapolis. So again, even though deals have slowed, they're certainly not proceeding at the pace they were pre-pandemic, and understandably so. We do still see investment taking investor confidence in our place in 20Q3. So some in March that have taken place that posted in the double digits as far as millions of dollars for their price point. So again, as promised, this is my contact information. I am going to pause and see if there's any questions. You're always welcome to reach out to me if you don't have any right now and you think of something else afterward.
Any questions? Danielle, that was great. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
You're very
on all
welcome.
of that. It's interesting to see how the Minneapolis area compares to the rest of the country.
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. I find it very interesting. Again, looking at that investment volume, if you take a peek at some of the other metros, it's going to look very different than what we're seeing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks so much, Joe.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead. Am I sharing my screen? Is everyone seeing that?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, you're gonna see some new faces running around the Market Center, especially when we're all back together here a little bit, but on some Zoom calls. So, and since our last team meeting, we've brought on several new agents, and Colin is coming from us from Coldwell Banker. So when you go ahead and see him, say hi. Also, Jason Daly. Jason Daly is he was the agent of the year for Realty Group last year, and he just came this week to our Market Center. So if you see any of these folks, say hi to them and welcome to the Market Center. Also, some other announcements. Mr. Tom Comerford. Congratulations, sir. Tom went ahead and capped this month as well, or last month actually. So thank you, Tom. Congratulations. Enjoy that 100%. You got any more deals coming? Tom may not know.
Muted.
You're muted, Tom.
Oh, I said, I hope so.
I hope so. I hope so too. I hope so too. Good work, Tom. Congratulations on that. Also,
you.
Christopher Haas went ahead and capped last month as well. So and it's interesting to hear. There's a lot more cappers as well. Darren Nelson, Jeff Carlson, Rochelle Johnson, Diane and Bob Hawkins all capped last month. So they're all at 100% as well. So busy month, busy month. Events, Maggie, what do we have cooking there?
Yeah, so I just wanted to let everybody know I don't know if any of you guys have been to the website kwselectagents.com. That is the new training calendar that you can access all of the events going on in the Market Center and find the links to all those trainings. We just added a commercial section in green, so you can see all of the events have a little color-coded dot next to them. So there's commercial specific trainings from KW Commercial that are going to be making their way onto the calendar. So feel free to bookmark that kwselectagents.com link. And then again, you can just go to that website, click the event you want to add, and you can add it directly to your calendar. You can add it to Google, Outlook, all that stuff. So with a click of a button, add the individual events.
Awesome. And can you send that in our notes, Maggie, as well?
Yes, I will send you out a link to that so you can go ahead and bookmark that. I'll send that with the recap notes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. If any of you, our attorney today, no, actually tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Michelle Smith is going to go ahead and do an update on forms. Now, a lot of this won't affect us. Some of those forms are residential. I know you still can pull all those forms from Midcar as well. So if you want to sit in on that, that will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock with Michelle, our attorney. Also, Mega Camp. Mega Camp is coming up here on the 15th through the 17th. We do actually have some commercial recruits, not with KW yet, that will be going ahead and attending that. It's going to be virtual this year, and there's definitely commercial breakouts on that. So if you want more information on that, you'll be receiving emails on it, but reach out to Maggie or myself, and we can get you set up on that end. Also, as far as just a little bit of a Market Center update, as far as with both of our offices pretty much combining together here with space, that's in the process right now. So we're getting numbers together. We have a couple different places that we're looking at, and we're putting those numbers together and see what will work best for our Market Center on that also.
An update on timing on that, so to speak, or?
Yeah, we'll be in the official news space by the end of the year of this year.
And then-
Yeah, so
So when would you envision us physically leaving the space that we're in now?
we'll be leaving as far as the physical space by the end of October. And what we would do is we just kind of have a little bit of a boot camp in the Market Center in Apple Valley, because their lease runs till the end of the year, and then move
I see.
into our new space.
So that'll be the Gap home base,
That'll be the Gap, the home base for a couple months. Yep,
the current Apple Valley Market Center. Okay,
until our new space is ready.
got it.
So yeah, so we set up there. Also in the email with all of the notes that you'll receive from our meeting today, Maggie will also go ahead and send the information. It's just with everything with the staff and their roles, and if you have questions and stuff like that, what they do, how they can go ahead and help us grow our business on that end.
MC staff.
The important one is Maggie with the money. Let's be real there.
Meg
right.
with the money. Meg, not Maggie. Meg.
Oh, you don't want to do the Meg with the money. Thank you. Success stories, deals that are going on right now. I know I've talked to several of you privately. There's some big things coming down the pipe on that, but does anyone want to go ahead and share any success stories that they've had recently? Oh, we're all going to be quiet. Not one?
Everybody's modest.
Everyone's being modest today. All right. So how about any client needs, any listings out there that we need to go ahead and need to promote? Any buyers searching for properties that we can help out?
I'm always in the hunt for apartment buildings,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what everyone wants, but they're hard to find. So size doesn't matter. Not too small, preferably bigger the better. So, but I think everybody knows I'm looking for that on a continual basis. Yeah. So.
Anybody else?
I'd like to propose a question to the group, being that there's some good experienced people on the line. Is Tom Baker still on with us?
He is.
Tom, could you give your overall analysis of what's happening in the retail market right now?
Gonna make me talk?
Yeah,
Retail market right now is kind of up in the air with some of the retailers, but there's a lot of optimism on it. There's a lot of people looking for new space.
new space, okay.
I'm showing space today, and I've got 2 other users that are looking for space and negotiating on a building in Woodbury for them. And they're larger spaces, and you know, it fills up fast when these big guys go out.
Yeah,
Definitely. Well, we'll be teaching a lead generation class, so we have more clients to work with next Tuesday at 8:30. We'll set that up on that whole end of it. Any other success stories or deals or anything out there that we need to promote? Seeing none? We're moving on. We already did our commercial website on that end, and thank you guys for everything that you do. I know there's some big deals out there going on because I've been talking with some of you guys. So kudos on that. That's absolutely a big, big deal. And thank you guys for everything you do. You need anything, just go ahead and reach out.
thank you, Jared.
Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.